Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. I'm going to answer let's have a look. Dan Cullen is hot off the mark. Morning, Dan. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I do need just to make sure that all things are well over on Twitch. They appear to be. That's good news. That's a good start. Are we live on Instagram? We are now live on Instagram. My apologies. There is no intro today. Yeah, you have no idea how close I came to missing the beginning of today's show. Mrs. Demolition News, Ruth, to most of you that know her, off to Littlehampton on a coach trip with her parents today. So I agreed to take her to the meeting point, about 3 miles away from where I'm currently sat. But there's a couple of road closures in place. So I ended up doing a bit of a detour. Very nearly missed the started time and also missed the ability to actually upload the intro. So apologies for that. So if I do seem a little more tongue-tied and flustered than usual, now you know why. Let's have a look. As has become the custom, I wanted to give you a very quick heads up for today about today's after-show discussion point, which I'm thinking of calling Mark's Morning Monologue. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Yes, the point of the day is what my mum used to call make, do and mend. Make, do, amend. Maintaining, fixing, repairing stuff rather than throwing it away. We unquestionably, I think, live in a throwaway society today, but with a rising need to safeguard resources and the environment, obviously, could we see a return to our old ways? So, yes. No opening tune today, Steve. I will play a tune in just a second, but yeah, all went a bit pear-shaped this morning. Literally just dashed through the door. Morning to Mark Whiting. Good morning to Gary Muirhead. Good morning to Dan Cullen as well. As I say, apologies for the lack of intro, but yeah, it was a bit fraught this morning. So just to make sure that there's Ken Hatcher as well. Morning, Ken. Just to make sure that Steve gets his fill of music, I'll play the intro in just a second. But I do need to say good morning to Peter McKenna and to Jim Turner and to Jonathan Duras and to Luke Carney. I'm going to go back to Peter. Morning, guys. Hope everyone is having a better day than we are. Yes, apparently there is going to be a kind of a rescue of a machine taking place in Preston or thereabouts in the very near future. Chris Ford says, good morning, gang. Have you ever noticed how the oil in your fingers always comes off on your sandwiches rather than the rag? Yeah, I've never noticed that with oil, because I don't have much to do with oil. What I can tell you is I obviously go fishing. You tend to get maggot dye on your fingers. That ends up in your sandwiches too. Got a podcast later. Listening to Shy is UK. Listening to why is UK construction so expensive? Yeah, just so you know, let's have a look. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Just so you know, just playing this up. Over the course of the past 3 and a bit weeks, I think, we've produced 15, 16 of these morning monologues, the bit that I do after the show. We've also obviously got them over on YouTube as individual items, but I am basically in the process of uploading the whole shebang over to Spotify. So if you are a Spotify user, I mean, some of you will have already heard these things anyway, but if you are a Spotify user, you will be able to watch and listen to all of those in the very near future. We've got the first one up, and we will do more as the time progresses. We have somebody over in California. Nesta, it's 2 a.m. California. How are you doing? I am doing dandy, particularly having spoken to somebody from California. I'm coming roughly your way in the near future. I say roughly your way. In about 4 weeks' time, I'll be over in Las Vegas. I won't swing by. I won't be one of those people that you meet on holiday and just turns up on your doorstep. But good to see you all the way from California. Let's have a look. 70 mile an hour winds later today and heavy rain. Yeah, as I say, my wife is in Littlehampton today, and apparently they've got a bit of wind this morning, or today rather, but the real problems start tomorrow. Steve says podcasts are great. You can have full-blown argument and not get cheek back. Live streaming is the same, my friend, because I have the ability to block anyone at a moment's notice. Do you know, here's the thing. It is, where are we? 781 episodes of this. I mean, it all told, since March 2020, I've done more than 1,000 live streams now, and I've never had to block anyone. Had my run-ins with stalkers and what have you before, but Yeah, never had to block anyone on this show. Ken Hatcher says, just had the oil leak fixed on the Kubota, so I'm all okay now today. Good stuff. Good stuff. You just started watching Ali Abdal now on YouTube. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, Ali Abdal. He's a he was a doctor. He was a junior doctor in the NHS, but was very, very keen on all things like productivity and managing his time. So he started a YouTube channel to explain how he did that. He's now launched a new app, and I'm doing some videos on that app. So Ali Abdal, well worth a watch. Does some very good videos. What's she been eating? I think that's relating to the wind where my wife is going. You don't want to know is the answer to that. So having not done a proper intro, let's do one now, shall we? It is Wednesday, the 21st of August. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, Kobelco goes hard down under. Liebherr's telescopic wheel loader under the spotlight. But we're going behind the scenes with Shantui. And in keeping with our after show chat, we're going to see how Volvo rebuilds a wheel loader from the ground up. Speaking of the after show chat, I'm going to be talking about welcoming a return to a make, do, and mend mentality, largely inspired by Mr. Jim Turner, just as a matter of course. But before we get to all of that, and we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine immediately after this. Now, there is a very real danger that our friend Dan Cullen could run away with this. He's currently in the lead. He's still catchable, but he's very much in the lead. So everybody break out the magnifying glasses, because this is the machine you need to identify. Its own mother wouldn't recognize it from that, I would guess. But yes, that is what you need to identify. We will obviously be revealing more of that as we go along. While you're thinking about that, let me take that off the screen, because I do have one other thing that. Let's have a look. Chris Ford says the daily diet of grease and hydraulic oil got a perfect fingerprint on the cheese cracker. Brilliant. Yeah. I know that. I know the thing. Then there's an extension to that point that I was making, also about fishing with sandwiches. You can sit. Excuse me. You can sit there for 4, 5, 6 hours, and your float just sits there and stubbornly refuses to do anything. Reach for a drink, reach for a sandwich, and away she goes, while you've got a handful of hot coffee and a sandwich. Guaranteed. Now, yes, mystery. We've done Mystery Machine. We do need to do that other thing, which is the Excavator World Cup. Yeah, Excavator World Cup time, and today it sees. What have we got? We've got Sani going head to head with Atlas. You know the score. You've got an imaginary 150 grand of imaginary money to spend. You have to invest it in one of those two excavator brands. Which are you going for? Are you going Sani or are you going Atlas? That's what I'd like to know. We've already had a vote for an Atlas from Mr. McKenna. Thank you very much indeed for that, Peter. Going back to Mystery Machine, we've had a guess from Garvin over on Mostly Diggers on Instagram. He reckons it could be a Liebherr. It is not. What have we got? Steve Williamson reckons it could be a Vermeer trencher. It is not one of those. Gary Muirhead says that the Liebherr R914 compact Litronic. It is not. And we've got another vote for, we've got one vote for Sani. We've got one vote for Atlas so far. Dan Cullen is going for the Liebherr 924. It is not. Let me show you a smidgen more. There you are. Gary Muirhead is putting his name alongside Atlas. And Jim Turner reckons an old Kubota 3-ton digger with canopy. It is not. It is not. Nobody's got the right make. Nobody's got the right model. Not even sure in the truest sense anybody's actually got the right type of machine yet. So keep those. Well, there you are. That pretty much sums it up. What the hell is that? Says our friend Peter McKenna. And another vote for Atlas. So where are we now? Atlas 3, and I think Atlas 3. I don't think we've got any votes for have we got a vote? Yes, we have. 3-1. 3-1. Because Steve Williamson says Sani, because I was on an Atlas Duck and it was just terrible. There you are. So it's 3-1 as it stands at the moment to the fine folks at Atlas. We'll be coming back to that in the very near future. Let me just, to whet your appetite, there's a bit more of the machine in question. It's a white. Well, I've got a white box with a darker white square. Yeah, there is some white in there, no question about it. And Chris Field has also thrown his weight behind Atlas as well. So Atlas doing rather well at the moment. Let me take that away because it is time to start the show proper. Let's have a look. What have we got? I know what we've got. This. Yeah, had another vote over from Instagram from All Terrain Max, who is becoming a bit of a regular here, actually. He has gone for Atlas as well. So Atlas is largely storming away with this one. Now, put your seat in the right position, pull down your blinds, fasten your seatbelt, adopt the brace position, because we're heading down under with the fine folks at Kobelco.
I'm Steve Bellabonna. I've been with WA Limestone for the last 38 years. Basically, I've come through the ranks as an apprentice, the workshop, through the whole business really. And basically WA Limestone is a resource supplier. So we supply quarrying products to the general Perth and wider market. We do a lot of breakwater construction. That's sort of our bread and butter work. Seawalls. We recently supplied 1.5 million tonnes to the Ocean Reef Marina here in Perth. That's been our biggest project. This is the first SK500 XD that we've purchased. It's going really well. I've been keeping my eye on the Kobelco range for a while. Always wanted to try one and just compare them to the products that we currently use.
G'day, my name's Dean Bailey from Liebherr Hire and Sales, and I'm the area manager for the southern region here in Western Australia. About 2 years ago, we reached out to Steve at WA Limestone. Sat down and had a good chat with him regarding his current fleet of excavators, operations and also up and coming projects. And we identified there was an opportunity there for a new Kobelco SK500 XD. Yeah, look, I guess Dean approached us probably 2 years ago, and we sort of started this relationship. Dean came to see us a few times, and then he finally convinced us to try the excavator. There was one in stock, and we needed one. And I did some market research, and a few people told me these machines are worth having a crack at, worth purchasing, I should say. So we decided to purchase one. Well, I guess the first thing that stands out to me probably is the extra plate and the steel that's on the machine. I mean, this machine's classed as a 50-ton machine, and it does have a lot more steel or plate, if you want to call it, compared to its competitors. It's a very comfortable machine to operate. Our drivers, the people that work the machines, really want to operate the machine. They really enjoy driving it, working it. It's very smooth. Fuel has been really good compared to other machines that we run at the moment. So we are pretty impressed with this machine, I will say, yes. Well, I think Steve could see the value in the XD series, specifically in this environment, being such a harsh mining and quarry environment. It's quite hard on the gear. Just one look at the machine, having a look at the extra reinforcing and plating throughout the undercarriage, up the arm and boom connection. Just the extra engineering that Kobelco's put into the machine, which usually does test other machines in the market. The biggest features of this model, class-leading performance in regards to bucket breakout force, arm breakout force, best in class in regards to tractable force, drawbar pull, and it's actually a 52-tonne operating weight, which makes it the largest capacity machine in this class.
Locally, the service has been very good. The guys have been great. If we need something, if we need some parts, or it's been fantastic to date. We can't complain there's been an issue with the service at all. They're very happy.
Eagle-eyed Steve Williamson says, some amount of diesel spill run on the side of that machine. Didn't notice, wasn't paying attention. I was watching Instagram, actually. Gary Muirhead, any update from Down Under about the two SK1300 demo machines? I'm almost on the verge of giving up. That's overstating it. I keep reaching out and keep being told we will. What's that, a year now, probably, if not more? I'll come back to all things related to our mystery machine and also to our Excavator World Cup in just a moment. I'm going to say good morning to Alex Latham, who has just voted for Sani in the World Cup. They are trailing at the moment. You know, there's nice and there's good and there's great. You know, terms of praise. Kobelco apparently better than looking at Razzle. How very dare you, Mr. McKenna? My old publication. where I had a regular column for 4 years. Yes, indeed. Right, so loads and loads of guesses on our mystery machine, but I can tell you we've got somebody that far away. Let's have a look. Who we got? Chris Ford reckons it's a Kubota. It's not. Peter McKenna reckons it's a Terex crane. It's not. Dan Cullen going for a Wacker Neuson 100. It is not. Steve Williamson going for a Sumitomo SH60. It's not one of those either. Gary Muirhead, Liebherr 910. No, it's not one of those. Not a Terex Schaeff from Chris Ford. Not a Schaeff 60 SR. Not an Owen K RH75, not a Liebherr LH30C. So, yes. Tell you, person that's so far the nearest, when I can find him, is that one. Gary Muirhead. Reckons it could be a Fuchs 320. It's not. But oh boy, you're in the ballpark, my friend. Go and have another guess. There's a little bit more to be going on with. That's what we're looking for. And surely this is not a question. You had a column in a Razmag, Mark. Yeah, I did. I did. I think I've even done like a podcast episode about it. Yeah, very quickly. Because I know some of you will have heard this story before. Wrote it up, had a chat with a friend of mine about something that happened to me. I won't bore you with the details, but he said, why don't you write it and send it off to Fiesta magazine? So I did. And they printed it and they paid me very well. And they also paid me very quickly as well. Lo and behold, about 3 months later, they came back and they said, we are starting a new column and we would like you to produce it. We would like you to produce at least the first 3 articles. And I'll tell you now that the column in question was called Crap Shag Corner. As you can tell, I'm very well qualified to write something about Crap Shag Corner. So the basic idea was, you know, Razzle and Fiesta and all these different magazines get lots of letters from the public and what have you about, I slept with an entire cheerleader team and all these stuff. They wanted the reverse. They wanted an idea of where things of a sexual nature had gone pear-shaped. Who better to ask? So as I say, the idea was I would write it for the first 3 months, after which the public were sure to hit them with a deluge of equal content. 4 years I wrote that for. Never once did the public ever write in about things. And just as a small aside, because it still makes me laugh to this day, all of them were based on fact. It was all things, sort of things you and your mates talk about when you're down the pub in your 20s. All of them were based on fact, but I never ever used the real names of the people that had been involved, except once. And the story was from and featured the name of my sister-in-law rather, not my sister. That would be weird. So yes, there you are. I did indeed have a column in a magazine of that nature. Jim Turner says, I don't want to think of Mark's column anytime, but essentially not at snap time. I do apologize. I'm glad we've changed the subject now. Gary Muirhead went very close with his Fuchs guest. Dan Cullen quickly leapt on that with the ML320. It is not one of those. Alex Latham has gone with the is that MHL 33-1? No, it's not one of those. Not an 820. It's not a 350. It's not a 712. It's not a 430. But I can tell you that last month's champion has made a bit of a comeback. Left it late in the month, but he's here, and no question about it. Here we are. Where has he gone? There we are. Steve Williamson has gone for a Fuchs MHB 230C. That's what it is. That's precisely what it is. And I can prove it. There you are. There you are. A Fuchs MHB 230C. Damn fine machine it is. Never been a fan of the Fuchs colour scheme. Never been a fan. But there you are. That's what we're talking about. Let me just write that down because I will forget. Put an SW against that. So Steve Williamson left it until mid-month to actually join the fray on the Mystery Machine. And in the past, 1, 2, 3, 4, in the past 4 shows, he's got 2 of the 4. Steve Williamson coming up on the rear. I wonder what them ducks. I wonder what like them ducks are. Not sure what he means by that. But yes. Anybody ever any? Let me try that again. Anybody ever had any experience of driving a Fuchs? I'd love to hear from you. We like that kind of thing. Gary Muirhead, quick as a flash, Fuchs in hell. You were that close, Gary. That close. I think you were possibly one model away from getting yourself another victory, but it wasn't to be. So yeah, we've done and dusted today's Mystery Machine. Still have this running, although by the sound of it, I think Atlas is going to run away with this one. I think it currently stands at about 8-2 or thereabouts. Peter McKenna says, I like Terex Fuchs cranes. Absolutely. We've started something now. Who gives a Fuchs? Yes, indeed. Ken Hatcher, Fuchs used in the scrapyard a lot. Yeah, they certainly are. That's the last time I saw one in action was actually in the scrapyard. You're absolutely right. Peter McKenna says, I can operate one of those to within an inch of its life. Ken Hatcher putting a bit of balance. We are now 8-3 in favour of Atlas. So we've got a couple of people voting for Sani. Unless there's a bit of a surge, I can see Atlas running away with this one. But we shall see. We shall see. So cracking on. Somebody just commented as I was changing screens. Fuchs cares, lol, from Dan Cullen. Whatever. So yes, we're going to be. A lot of people guess that Fuchs machine was a Liebherr. Oddly enough, we're going to be back with Liebherr in just a moment.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Gary Muirhead says, I remember Hydrex were a dealer for Fuchs in the UK. I think it's through Blue Machinery now, which, given the colour scheme of a Fuchs machine, seems entirely appropriate. I promised you some Liebherr. Telescopic wheel loaders. They're a thing. Have a look. just the one dissenting voice on that. Peter McKenna says, not into mini wheel loaders. They're too easy to overturn. However, others are saying, what a sexy looking loader. It's a Liebherr. Why would you be surprised? Handy with the telescopic, should see more on site. Yeah, I don't actually think I've seen one of those in the wild as yet. Gary Muirhead says, I wonder if you could put pallet forks on that. I'd be astonished if you couldn't, to be perfectly honest. It's part of the idea, isn't it? Dan Cullen says, quite handy on a site as it can have multiple uses. Yeah, the conversation's gone sideways, as it so often does. Peter McKenna says, bars, dandelion and burdock and meat and potato pie is a weird combination, but it works. Well, several things to say about that. A, jealous, because, you know, I'm a man eating leaves now. But dandelion and burdock, fantastic. Meat and potato pie, fantastic. Why would it not work? Jim Turner says, bars pop is sound. I don't know how many factories they have, but there's one down the road between Mansfield and Rainworth, pronounced Raneth. Raneth. Thank you very much indeed. Jim Turner says, Liebherr, pretty much the same as JCB, but probably better. I'll leave you to decide on that. And speaking of, now, where was it? I'm sure somebody else said that was it, that the whole idea. Yes, the bars, where is it? Bars, dandelion and burdock, meat and potato pie. Weird combination, but it works. Chris Ford says, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me as well. Bloody starving. Bloody starving. I've been largely vegetarian for about 8 days. But the weight is coming off, although it's hard to tell because the beard is getting a little bit unruly at the moment. But the weight is coming off. The diabetes or the blood sugar levels are back in range, which is where they need to be. So all feeling pretty good about the world at the moment. I'll be back in just a moment after this. Remember we used to call Shantui Shantui? I say we, I mean me. Yeah, but they kind of burst on the scene a little bit. I'm not entirely sure they're actually in the UK as yet, but they are a growing force, unquestionably. But I thought it was about time we paid them a visit and had a look behind the scenes, particularly at their excavator range. Take a look.
We are working with you for a better future. Shantui Excavator. Welcome to the world of Shantui and feel its unprecedented charm. Let's embark on an exclusive journey. Time witnesses the long run of history. We lay stress on the needs of customers, strive, perfect, and constantly pursue our highland. This is our commitment and hope. Apply the internationally advanced technologies and seek our self-accomplishment in the international platform. This moment, we, legendary as we are the focus of the world. Keeping pace with the world since our startup. This is our attitude, moreover, our mission. We, staying ingenuity to our original mission with excellent workmanship, are forging ahead on the road of independent innovation. With all kinds of possibilities taken into account, we are imbued with passion and enthusiasm of research and development in order to keep up pace with the times. On the way of independent innovation with all kinds of possibilities and passion of R&D, we place ingenuity to our original mission, make it grow up with the times. The world-level facility and perfect staff training system make us lay a solid foundation of the superb manufacturing capabilities. We do have confidence that high-end manufacturing makes the world-level quality. Harsh quality requirements forged our powerful product portfolio. SE50-9 hydraulic excavator. SE60-9 hydraulic excavator. SE75 9W hydraulic excavator. SE75-9 hydraulic excavator. SE135 9W hydraulic excavator. SE135-9 hydraulic excavator. SE210W hydraulic excavator. SE215-9 hydraulic excavator. SE245LC-9 hydraulic excavator. SE370LC-9 hydraulic excavator. SE470LC-9 hydraulic excavator. Different Products carries the same brand concept. We are selling not only products, but also creating a high-quality life experience for our customers. From manufacturing to service, from providing customers with single-typed products to a full range of customized solutions and systematic service. We wholeheartedly, putting the needs of customers above all else, render the value-added and full guarantee service in an extremely timely manner, and pass down the classic value and emotions. We, adhering to our concept and delivering concrete outcomes, aim to carry forward the energy-boosting spirit of Shantui, which represent an inexhaustible source of strength and progress. Customer satisfaction is our priority. We will work with you for a bright future anytime, any place. Your trustworthy excavator manufacturer.
Apologies, I realised halfway through that I was lurking in the background. I was just uploading some more podcasts for you people, so my apologies if you could see me beavering away in the background. Let's have a look. Let's go back. Well, first of all, let's start with Chris Ford, who says, my diet has not lasted long. The wheels came off after darts last night. 2 pies later and a small portion of chips back in the cream crackers today. But it was only a small portion of chips, Chris. So, and potatoes are considered a vegetable. I think I don't think that's a bad thing. According to Steve, Shantui sounds like a holiday destination. Yes, I'm off for a fortnight in Shantui. Looks like it was filmed in the past. All things were filmed in the past, Steve. I know what you mean, but think about it. Even that thing that I just said about things being filmed in the past. That's in the past too. Looks like an old Komatsu, says Jim Turner, and Peter McKenna at exactly the same time says, why do they look like Komatsu machines? There may be a reason for that. Dan Cullen, nice little machine. Hope the W doesn't stand for wank, says Chris Ford. Bearing in mind they're Chinese, wouldn't it be marvellous? Wouldn't it be marvellous? Press conference. See you put a W in the name of the machines. What does that stand for? Wank. Well, thanks for that. Similar to the Komatsu cab, I think we get the drift. It's an excavator, quite right. Looks like it doesn't have check valves on any of the rams. Yeah, China's a funny old destination, isn't it? Wonder what pumps and engine are in that. And Peter McKenna quickly flashes back with probably Komatsu, Dan. Not seen a Shantui here. No, nor have I, but you'd think they must arrive at some point. Trustworthy copycat excavators. I mean, listen, if they have copied Komatsu, and I'm sure Komatsu are well aware, and if they have properly done that, I'm sure there will be court cases pending. But if they've copied Komatsu, well, they've built a machine based on something pretty damn good in the first place. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen. I see a thing with these Chinese Asian brands. They seem to copy Komatsu, etc. It's not. I mean, there is a degree of that, but I think also, I think in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, there was this. I think a lot of the major manufacturers foresaw a day when China would open its doors and basically put manufacturing plants in China, and as a result, they will have employed lots of people who got to see what went into their machines. Is it any great surprise that they went away and did them themselves? And in some ways, I mean, it's very easy to point the finger at the Chinese and say, oh, you're copycats. Look at there's a bit of Ireland where pretty much every crushing and screening company is within about 10 miles of each other. And they're all uncles and cousins and nieces and nephews and grandsons and grandfathers and what have you. And they've basically worked for a company, thought, I could do that. And off they go, do it themselves. There you are. Dan Cullen, one thing you never do is see tomorrow as yesterday gone today. I've no idea what he's talking about there. Goes well. I drive a Wank 160, an S-Wank 160. Yes, I've driven an S-Wank 160. The Temu of construction machinery. Yes, absolutely. Well, there is a degree of that. Whenever you get bored, there's kind of a branch of YouTube where there are people that are buying, particularly Americans, they buy Chinese excavators, predominantly mini excavators, but they buy Chinese mini excavators from sites like Alibaba. So they're paying about 20 grand for what effectively arrives as a flat packed excavator that they have to partially assemble. And there's lots of people saying, is this up to much? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? Quite a mixed bag of comments. I think if you're a homeowner and you've got some work to do about the garden, maybe a machine like that might be absolutely fine. If you are in the earth moving grounds work business, maybe not so much. But yeah, go have a look. I bought a Chinese excavator and see what that leads you to on YouTube. So let us crack on, because I'm erring towards my final piece of the day, which will be inspired at least partly by what I'm about to show you.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I couldn't make head nor tail of what Dan Cullen said. Peter McKenna's the same, says Dan speaking double Dutch again, but Dan has now clarified. Saying goes, there's always yesterday and today, but tomorrow never comes. Well, I bloody hope it does, because I've got more content to show you tomorrow. So yes, I sincerely hope it does come, but thanks for that, Dan. Thank you for the clarification. Today's after show chat, which I'm starting to believe should be called Mark's Morning Monologue, because I like the alliteration that goes with it, is going to be on the subject of make, do, and mend. So to kind of get you in that mood, here's a little something from Volvo. I do apologise. Something's happening on my computer. It's all right. I think I've solved it. Let me just kill everything here because I can hear myself. My own show is playing in the background, which is very, very distracting indeed. I don't know how you lot put up with it. Dan Cullen says, I'd love to work in a place like that, refurbish older kit. We'll come to that in just a moment. Gary Muirhead on the same line. It makes total sense to refurbish old equipment. Every manufacturer should be doing it. Totally agree. Lovely garage. I love the build as well. And Peter McKenna. Tomorrow will come faster than you think if you read Mark's column in Razzle. Back issues. Yes. Come faster. Yes. Jim Turner says the W stands for ranked. So at the press conference, their machine will be wanked top of their class. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. So I do need to round this off and then we'll get into the after show bit. So the latest round of our Excavator World Cup competition pitted Sani against Atlas. But which brand came out on top? Well, as usual, we put it to the public vote and I can tell you that the winner is... It's Atlas. Atlas goes forward to the second round while Sani sadly leaves us empty-handed. Tomorrow's match will actually be the final contest in the first round of our Excavator World Cup, and it will see Sennabogen going head-to-head with Kubota. So make sure you tune in and take part. Somebody had to get the word in, didn't they? Thank you very much indeed for that, Dan. By the way, Gary, I saw your question. I'm not going to air it publicly. I've sent you a WhatsApp message that will explain exactly what it is we're up to. So it is time for Mark's morning monologue, which will be immediately after this. Just before I go into full lecture mode, quick point. Yesterday, our main man, Jim Turner, posted an excellent article over on LinkedIn talking about farming, animal slaughter, where our food comes from, and all that kind of thing. At the end of the article, he cited yesterday's breakfast show as the inspiration for the article. If you remember, we were actually talking about, I'm more than happy to eat my body weight in meat, but I don't want to go out and murder a cow. That was what we were talking about. Well, I'm about to return the favour. I apparently inspired Jim. Jim has inspired me. As you all well know, Jim is a keen and vocal advocate for repair over replacement, of getting maximum value from his equipment, even if that means running the same machine for decades. So today's after show chat was inspired largely by Big Jim Turner, and it goes something like this. Remember when make, do, amend was more than just a phrase? It was a way of life, a practical approach to living that encouraged resourcefulness, thrift, and a deep respect for the things we owned. Whether it was patching up a worn pair of jeans, tinkering with a car engine to keep it running, or refurbishing a piece of machinery, there was a time when people took pride in fixing things rather than throwing them away. But today, in the demolition and construction equipment sector and beyond, that mindset seems to be fading into history. Let's start with the world we're actually in, the demolition and construction equipment sector. In the past, if a machine broke down, the first thought wasn't to replace it, it was to repair it, to make it last. An excavator, dozer, or wheel loader was seen as an investment, a piece of equipment that, with the right care, could serve you well for decades. And when the parts wore out, you didn't scrap the machine, you repaired or remanufactured those parts. Today, that's become less common. We live in a throwaway society where the instinct to replace rather than repair has taken hold. When a machine starts showing its age, many companies simply look to trade it in for a newer model. There's a growing perception that new is always better and that anything old is obsolete. But what does that mean for the environment? And are we really getting better value for money? Take remanufacturing, for example. It's a practice that obviously, as you've just seen, is alive and well, but it's often overshadowed by the push for new machines. Yet remanufacturing is a brilliant way to extend the life of equipment, reduce waste and cut costs. It's also a far more sustainable option than constantly buying new. By remanufacturing components, we're not just saving money, we're also conserving raw materials, reducing energy consumption, and minimizing the environmental impact of manufacturing new parts from scratch. And let's not forget about the skills involved. The ability to diagnose a problem, take something apart and put it back together again so it works as good as new, That's a craft, one that deserves to be valued and preserved. But the decline of make, do, amend isn't just limited to our industry. Look at how we treat our cars. There was a time when most drivers had at least a basic understanding of how their vehicles worked. People would spend weekends under the bonnet, changing the oil, replacing spark plugs, or fixing a dodgy exhaust. These days, cars are so packed with electronics and specialised components that many people wouldn't dream of fixing them themselves. Instead, we hand over our keys to a garage, or worse still, consider trading in our vehicle for a new one at the first sign of trouble. This shift has been driven by several key factors. For one, cars have become more complex. But there's also a cultural shift at play where convenience trumps self-reliance. Why spend time fixing something when you can just replace it? But this convenience comes at a cost, not just to our wallets, but also to the environment. Every time we choose to replace rather than repair, we're contributing to a cycle of waste and consumption that is simply unsustainable. Think about the fashion industry, which has largely taken throwaway culture to its absolute extreme. Fast fashion has made clothing so cheap and accessible that many people see it as disposable. If a shirt tears or a button pops off, it's often easier to toss it out and buy something new rather than take the time to mend it. This has led to a staggering waste of textile waste, with millions of tons of clothing ending up in landfills each year. The environmental impact is enormous, from the water and energy used in production to the pollution caused by textile dyes and the synthetic fibres that can take centuries to decompose. It doesn't have to be this way. We can bring back the mindset of make, do, amend, not just as a nostalgic nod to the past, but as a necessary shift towards a more sustainable future. It starts with changing how we think about things we own, from our clothes to our cars to our construction equipment. Instead of seeing them as something disposable, we need to see them as valuable resources worth maintaining and preserving. In the demolition and construction equipment sector, that means prioritising maintenance and repair over replacement. It means investing in remanufacturing, not just as a cost-saving exercise, but as a commitment to sustainability. It means recognising the value of the skilled labour involved in repairing and refurbishing equipment, and ensuring that those skills are passed down to the next generation. It means taking a step back from the throwaway culture. Do that bit again. It means taking a step back from the throwaway culture that has become so all-pervasive. It means learning to sew a button, change a tire, or fix a leaky tap. It means thinking twice before we throw something out and asking ourselves if it can be repaired or repurposed instead. Ultimately, bringing back make, do, amend is about more than just fixing things. It's about fostering a mindset of sustainability, resourcefulness, and respect for the environment. It's about recognizing that things we own have a value beyond their price tags, and that taking care of them is not just good for our wallets, but it's good for the planet as well. In a world where the pressure In a world where the pressure to consume is constant, it might seem easier to take the path of least resistance, to buy new rather than repair, replace, or remanufacture. But if we're absolutely serious about safeguarding the environment, we need to rethink that approach. We need to remember the value of making, do, and mending, of fixing what's broken and preserving what is still fundamentally good. Because in the end, the things we own aren't just disposable items. They're part of a larger ecosystem, one that we have a responsibility to protect. By embracing a make, do, amend mentality, we're not just preserving the past, we're actually investing in a sustainable future. I'll go over to the chat in just a second, but a couple of things occurred to me while I was doing that. If we are, as an industry, going to embrace the notion of getting 2 or even 3 lives out of our equipment, will that skew the purchasing decisions towards higher quality equipment? I'm not going to use Shantui as a specific example, but we've just seen Shantui, and I think we all have our opinions on that. If we either buy into or are forced to buy into the whole sustainability argument, does that mean that our investments, our equipment investments, will be more forward thinking? Will we see a move towards the Liebherrs, the Volvos, the Caterpillars, the Komatsus of this world, rather than the the Primark end of the market? And speaking of Primark, I've said all of that. I'm equally guilty. I'm going to Las Vegas in 4 and a bit weeks. Before I go, almost without fail, I will pop into my local Primark. I'll pick up half a dozen cheap T-shirts, £1.80 a piece, throw them in my case, still in the wrapper, as it were. I'll wear them. If they get suntan lotion on them, or if I spill my dinner down them, doesn't matter. I'll throw them away. So I'm every bit as guilty. One other point, which goes back to my point about purchasing and procurement. As it stands today, it's relatively easy, if you're in the market for an excavator, for example, relatively easy to compare pricing between a Cat, a Komatsu, a Liebherr, a Volvo, a JCB, Hitachi, whatever it might be. Will we see a time when we will be able to compare the cost of new with the cost of a remanufacture machine just as readily? I'd love to get your thoughts on all of that and anything else you have in mind. So let me go back over to the chat, which lurks up here. What have we got? What have we got? Peter McKenna was the first. So, our food comes from supermarkets, according to most school children, so we can do away with farms and factories. Yeah, I'm aware of the fact that I often sound like an old man shouting at a cloud, or harking back to days of ginger pop and a bygone age, which frankly was before my time. But I think you're absolutely right. I think we've become too distant from, particularly in the field of food. And when you think about, like I say, I'll hold my hand up. I'm a complete fucking hypocrite here. The fact that I will go and buy a T-shirt that cost me £1.80 and throw it away after a couple of weeks away. If it's okay, I'll keep wearing it and certainly stick it under a shirt or whatever it might be. But if I spill something down it, or it goes a bit baggy, not a problem. I'll throw it away. I'll get another one. How ridiculous is that? And what is the knock-on effect? Obviously, in the manufacture of that T-shirt, as an example, there will have been energy consumed, water consumed. What's actually in the fabric? Are there dyes? Are they harmful? Will that T-shirt actually decompose in a landfill, or will it just hang around causing damage to the environment? And also the other cost. If you could produce a T-shirt for £1.80, who's making it? Who's making it? Am I basically propping up a sweatshop somewhere in Indonesia? Jonathan Dura says, we are a wasteful nation in the UK, of all things, from food to general stuff. Yeah, I totally agree. And we have, food-wise, I think we have our head rammed very, very deep up our own arses. I think the point that Peter McKenna made about school children not knowing the true origin of their food, I think that's one part of it. But you've got people on the poverty line or below. You've got homeless people. You've got I always revert to young single mothers, struggling to put food on the table, and yet Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Aldi, Lidl, Morrison's, all of these supermarkets, come the end of the day, they will bag up all of the stuff that didn't sell that day, that has a today sell by date on it, and throw it in a bin. And God forbid anybody actually digs down that bin to feed themselves. It's considered an offence. It's considered an offence to eat perfectly acceptable food, but it's in the bin. Chris Ford says it's the wankers on site that like to see new paint and encouraged by the government-based contracts like HS2. See, there is where, good point, Chris, and well made. There, I think, is one of the issues that we are. I think this could go both ways. I think there is a possibility that mindset could actually play into the demand for remanufacturing, or it could go the other way. I think for decades, we as an industry have, we have used part of that as one of our key differentiators. You go in to bid for a demolition project, all of our equipment is less than 3 years old, it's dead reliable, it's a premium brand, but as I say, it's less than 3 years old, it's only got a couple of thousand hours. All chances are it will not go wrong. And whoever you're bidding for that work with looks at it, goes, oh, that's good, new equipment, that's fantastic. So we can tick a box against likely reliability. There we go, there's the tick. However, those very same people that are letting that demolition work, letting that construction work, also have environmental targets to hit. If you can come to them and say, our kit is all more than 10 years old, it's all been remanufactured to manufacturer standards, we have warranties on everything, we have a long-term contract with Finning, Marubeni, Komatsu, whoever it might be, the machine is completely cared for and it's sustainable. We have done zero harm to the environment in having this machine. And even if that 10-year-old machine goes head to head with a brand new machine that's got a stage 5 engine, or it runs on electricity, that old machine, from a sustainability standpoint, will outrank the new machine for quite some time. The days are now gone when you had an old guy at the garage who could stick his head under the bonnet, and by just listening to the sound of the engine, he could tell what was wrong with it. Yeah, and I don't think it was just people at the garage. I think, helped that my dad was a chauffeur and kind of had a pretty good understanding of cars. But you always knew somebody, not even necessarily a professional. There was always somebody. I lived in a block of flats. There was always somebody. Oh yeah, I've had that. If you have a look under here, there's that doohickey there. You pull that out, pop that in, and yeah, they could solve these things. No youngster wants to get dirty these days or do the toil involved with repairing things. It's not just that though, is it? Getting dirty is certainly part of it. But I've mentioned this before. I got talking to a guy who was wearing what I believed to be a really, really, it was an outstanding like blazer jacket kind of thing. And I said, I love the jacket. It really fitted this guy like a dream. Sounds like I was chatting him up. I promise I wasn't. But it looked that good on him that I actually had to comment. And he literally whispered, he said, I actually got it at a charity shop. He said, it cost me £5 and I paid a tailor to another 10 quid just to make it fit me around the waist and everything else. He looked like $1 million and it cost him 15 quid. Now to go and buy that jacket brand new, 300, 400, 500 quid makes economic sense. But somebody's getting a second life out of a very, very good jacket there. Funnily enough, while I was writing that, one of the things that occurred to me, I'm due to be at a funeral on the 2nd of September, and my wife's uncle passed away a couple of days ago. So yes, I'm at a funeral, and you start to think, where is my black suit? Well, it's still in the bag coming back from the dry cleaners the last time I went to a funeral. Where is my white shirt? I know exactly where that is. Where's my black tie? I know where that is as well. And I need to wear a pair of black shoes. In fact, I will be wearing black Chelsea boots. Black Chelsea boots that I bought more than 34 years ago for my wedding. They've been resold, repaired a fair few times, but I will be wearing a pair of 34-year-old boots. Now, in absolute truth, I don't even know how this came about, but I bought them. I was away. I was working away, and I was in Stoke, and I walked past a shop window in Stoke High Street. You get the idea. I saw them, and it was that's what I want to get married in, a pair of those. Bought myself a pair of these Chelsea boots, and they have been with me ever since. And they've been, as I say, they've been constantly repaired. So yes, I paid way over the odds. I think in 1990, I think I paid about 100 quid for these things. So very expensive at the time, very expensive. But here we are, 34 years later, and they are still serving me well. There you are. Peter McKenna says it starts in schools. Schools don't teach that anymore, and most crafts are now a dying art. Yeah, the study of crafts. Does any school do that anymore? We used to do like woodwork and metalwork, and the girls did needlework. Does anyone do that anymore? I've not been in a school for quite some time. Does that happen anymore? I genuinely don't know the answer to that. Jim Turner says, when I was a nipper, I'd already learned spanner socket sizes, metric, AF and Whitworth, because I was always having to pass them to the old fella. We always had second-hand reconditioned tellies. My old clothes had patches on or sewn up. I always had second-hand bikes that I had to mend myself when they broke. The bizarre thing about that, we'll come back to the clothing side of things in a moment, because I do love me a charity shop, and I like the serendipity of it. I bought a a Paul Smith jacket, just a plain black jacket. It's got a fairly leery lining because that's what Paul Smith does. And I bought that at a charity shop. I think I paid about £8 for it, but I knew what I was buying. Fits me perfectly, looks pretty damn splendid as well. And I looked it up online after I bought it, £600. 600 quid, and I'd got it for a steal. But I mean, reconditioned tellies, yeah, I did a bit of that. The weird one there is the second-hand bikes. When I was a kid, I had, for about my, I don't know, 11th, 12th birthday. I mean, I'd had bikes before that, but I had a brand spanking new rally chopper. You remember the chopper? Mine was purple and orange. The greatest bicycle ever made by mankind. Fantastic. And what did I do? Me and a friend of mine went down to our local scrapyard. We basically helped ourselves to a frame, some mismatched wheels, some mismatched handlebars, and we built our own bikes. And what did I ride to and from school? The Frankenstein bike. The chopper still got an outing from time to time, but the track bike, as we called it, the Frankenstein that I'd bolted together out of half a dozen different bits and pieces, that was my bike of choice. Seems like the most reuse and remanufacturing happens in countries such as Asia. Yeah, I mean, we actually featured a film here very early doors when we first started doing this show of a guy or a bunch of guys that were very close to a ship breaking yard, and they were taking bits of old ship and turning them into buckets, excavator buckets. So yes, they are very good at it. And yet at the same time, a lot of our new clothing, our not necessarily Primark, but a lot of our cheap clothing is coming from exactly the same place. So what weird double standard. It's an actual offence to take anything out of a skip in the UK. Yeah. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? That to me makes no sense whatsoever. And I wonder, is this the same? Is this a Surrey thing or is this universal? We have a thing around here now. I mean, we have like Facebook Marketplace. So people put up, I'm about to get rid of a chair. Does anyone want the chair, office chair or a sofa or whatever it might be? But there's also a thing, and it happens up and down my road on a fairly regular basis. People just basically take piles of books, bits of furniture, children's car seats, just put them at the end of their drive, and then somebody will come along and help themselves to it. No money changes hands, and that whatever that is, be it a book or a kid's car seat, gets a second life. Why is that a bad thing? Surely that's a good thing. For the person that originally bought it, gets it taken away free of charge, and the person that's just got it has got themselves a bit of a bargain. Happy days, everyone's a winner. There is a good app out there called Too Good to Go, and it helps with food waste. Yeah, I remember seeing. I think it was. I don't think it was a dedicated documentary, but I have heard about that on the TV. Never really looked at it, but I mean, think about the number of food banks we've got. I don't know how many hundreds of food banks we've got, but surely clear the shelves at your local Aldi, Asda, whatever it might be. Take it to the food bank. I mean, I do remember this, which would explain at least partly why I'm now on the blood sugar diet and why I'm basically a type 2 diabetic. I went into my local petrol station, which is one of these. It's a BP and a Wild Bean cafe, the Marks and Spencer's cafe. Went in there late one night. It was, I don't know, half 10, something like that. Not long before they closed, and they bagged up, donuts and cookies and apple turnovers, and said, "Would you like these?" And I went, "Okay." And they just gave me a fucking great bag of what, I mean, I ate them. Me and the kids ate them. Send them to a food bank. I'll get somebody from the food bank to pop down, pick them up. That donut that I ate that night will be absolutely fine the following morning, by and large. Most modern sites won't accept older equipment because older beyond 3 or 5 years, which is a shame, really. It needs to change. It needs to change. If you are bidding for demolition or construction work, based at least partly upon your sustainability efforts, that should not be a consideration anymore. We have this system of weighting, 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 where where somebody letting a contract for demolition or construction has to weigh up things like cost, experience. Do they employ local people? One of the prerequisites on that should, in the future, be precisely that. We are running older equipment. We're using remanufactured, reconditioned equipment. We have done zero harm to the environment for the past 15 years because all of our machines are older. Excuse me, got the hicks. Belated good morning to all, says Mick. Morning, Mick. Good of you to join us. Ken Hatcher says, I like that app. I'm going to go and have a look at that. I don't own anything black anymore, says Peter McKenna. If someone wants me to attend a funeral, they will have to make do with t-shirt, jeans, and trainers. Yeah, I'm very old school when it comes to both funerals and weddings. You invite me to a wedding, you invite me to a funeral, trust me, I'll be the best dressed bloke there. It's the way what I was raised. If I went to a funeral or a wedding with my dad, it was black. Shiny shoes, black socks, black trousers, black jacket, white shirt, black tie. Simple as that. Peter McKinnon says there's a bloke by us that reconditions bikes and people complain they are too much at 20 to 30 quid. Nothing to do with anything else. Why haven't bikes gone up in value? When I was a kid, and I do mean an actual child, you could buy. I remember I wanted a bike called a Rally. I think it was called a Rally Pacer. It was like an electric bluey grey racing bike. And at the time, I would have been about 13, 14, so about 100 years ago. And I think it was 99.99, 100 quid. There's a bike shop not a million miles from where I'm sat right now, and you can still go in there. It's not the best, and it certainly isn't the Rally Pacer that I wanted, but you can still pick up a bike, brand new bike for 100 quid or thereabouts. And yet when you think about, I think my dad's first Ford Escort Estate, the one and only new car that he bought himself, I think he bought that, would have been mid-70s-ish, and I think he paid hundreds rather than thousands of pounds. Now look at the cost of a car, and yet bikes seem to have stayed the same. Don't know why that is. I remember as a 10-year-old, my older brother gifted me his Claude Butler bike as a Christmas present. I was in seventh heaven. There used to be, funnily enough, Claude Butler brings back very happy memories. There used to be a bicycle shop in Sutton, which is where I spent part of my growing up time. And there was a shop called Pearson's. And much the same as any shop, they'd have the flashy new bikes in the front, to draw people in. But if you were a proper cyclist and you were really into it, you went into the back, and that's where the Claude Butlers lived. You're absolutely right. With Shimano gears and stuff. The rat bike is the way to go. Couldn't afford a chopper. Look what they fetch now. Yeah, wish I'd hung on to mine. Could wheelie the damn thing for miles. I'm always skip diving, says Jim Turner, but I always knock and ask first. That is such a weird and so very British thing to do, isn't it? An item has been thrown away and could potentially end up in a landfill. Chances are it'll go to a recycling place where maybe somebody might rescue it. But if you spot something in there and you can get another use out of it, let it happen. Maybe, surely that's how you increase, resourcefulness. I'll never use that term again. We go in Sainsbury's after 9:30 on our way back from work, as they reduce the fresh food at about 9:15 every evening. Yeah, and plenty of people do. I mean, my wife's best friend lives literally opposite a big Sainsbury's supermarket. And it's not, I mean, I wouldn't say she's well off, but she owns her own company and whatever. But, that's a fairly regular thing. She will pay full price for an awful lot of stuff. But, if they're giving away today's yogurts for half price, why the hell wouldn't you? Makes perfect sense to me. So yeah, that was my take on it. And as I say, I do wonder. Imagine Imagine a future Balmer, a future Hillhead, or a future Plant Works, where in addition to the shiny new sexy hydrogen powered, electric powered, nuclear powered equipment in with all its shininess and everything else, what if Caterpillar were actually there with remanufactured? What if remanufactured started to become the way forward at exhibitions and beyond? And does that require a learning curve for salesmen? What effect does that have on plant salesmen? Obviously, plant salesmen, a lot of them are on commission based upon their ability to sell. If they sell a dozer, they'll earn whatever it might be. Do the dealers and the manufacturers need to put in place some kind of incentive for those guys, so that when they go and sell a remanufactured machine, not a remanufactured machine, but a machine to be remanufactured, arm them with enough information so that they can look over a machine, come up with a very accurate cost to remanufacture the whole thing or the bits thereof to bring it back up to speed, and what sort of remuneration do they get? Interesting. Mick Norton says there are still some nasty surprises awaiting many who delve into skips, like asbestos and drums of hazardous substances. All true. Yeah, all true. But again, I think if you're doing it at a domestic level, chances are you're less likely to get a bit of that. And again, I think the point that Jim is making, and it's certainly my feeling on this, is if you're delving into a skip for a kitchen table, you're not really delving into asbestos and what have you. Yes, it might be lurking there, but if you spot a thing that is either usable as it is, or that you could repurpose or upcycle or recycle, surely in this day and age when we are so keen to maintain resources and protect resources, surely you should be encouraged rather than discouraged. Makes no sense to me. But then so much of the world doesn't, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, there we are. That is Mark's morning monologue for today. What have we got? We used to have some good names for bikes. I remember the Grifter or the Striker. Yeah, the Grifter. I do remember that. It's quite the rugged one, that wasn't it? The Grifter. Yeah, I remember that very well. It's already happening. Go to any steam rally that has a plant section. There's some cracking rebuilds. There are. What I'm talking about, though, if you bought yourself Cat D8 as an example, you are spending, I don't even know, £500,000 possibly. Now, full well at the time you're buying that, you are buying an absolute elite top end dozer, and you also know that well cared for, that dozer will last you pretty much without any great grief for a decade. At the end of that decade, that machine is still valuable and viable. Send it back in, have new parts put on, have the engine upgraded, replaced, or brought up to whatever the emission standards are in 10 years' time, and you've got a machine that will quite easily do another 10 years. Quite easily. Take it in stride. Not a problem at all. In much the same way, I remember a friend of mine bought himself a Mercedes. Nice one. It's quite a big one. And it was, at new, it would have been very, very expensive. But the car had about 150,000 miles on the clock, and he picked it up for a steal because it had 150,000 miles on the clock. A Mercedes is barely run in after 150,000 miles. That will do another 150,000 miles without batting an eyelid. Not a problem at all. So long as you look after it and you feed and water it on a regular basis, that thing will just go and go and go. A lot of cars are, particularly top end cars. And I come back to shoes. I've got 2 or 3 pairs of shoes here that I absolutely love, and they've been relined, resoled, repaired. I mean, I've got one pair of shoes here that I think I paid about 180 quid for them. I reckon I've had them for 25 odd years. And they've been back to the manufacturer at least twice, possibly 3 times. And I get them back. They've got new linings in them, they've got new soles on them, new heels on them. I honestly, aside from the fact that the leather has gone a little bit softer and they fit my feet perfectly, you would never know these were old shoes. They are absolutely pristine. Jim Turner says, take Cromford working field this year. Muck was definitely being shifted. There was Chris with 2 old machines that are very capable. Tractor and boxes from well over 50 years ago, working very well. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense to keep using old kit. Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm not being overly naive here, and I'm thinking here about somebody like maybe Armac Demolition, who that they have a policy of newer machines. They do a lot of bridge demolition. As a result of doing bridge demolition, they generally have 2 fleets on site at once. So they got the frontline fleet, 6 machines maybe, but they've got another 6 machines parked in a yard. So if one of the machines that's working on an overnight session goes down, they can quickly bring in a replacement. Makes perfect sense. And with that, you want 100. Ideally 200% availability, uptime, and everything else. I understand that, and there will be other instances where that's the case. But if you are looking for, we were talking the other day about this new reservoir that's about to be built. You could quite easily go out to the market, find yourself some old scrapers, 20, 30 years old, some old toad scrapers or motor scrapers. So long as they've been well cared for, and I would like to think they have. Piece of piss. They would take it in their stride. Wouldn't bother them at all. Really wouldn't. Your shoes sound like Trigger's brush. The only bit that's really still old is the actual shoe itself. The soles, yeah, you're absolutely right. It is like Trigger's broom, no question about it. But to buy, as I say, I paid about 180 quid for these shoes, whatever it was, 25 years ago. They're still going strong 25 years later. They still get admiring glasses because they are absolute classic shoes. To get them resold and repaired and everything else, I think the last time I did it cost me about 60 quid. And what I get back is an as new pair of shoes. So effectively, and as I say, I've done it 2 or 3 times, I paid 180 quid for a new pair of shoes. But now, as a result of choosing wisely, I am now paying 60 quid for subsequent new shoes. The maths makes sense, as do all of the sustainability and resource end of the argument as well. Anyway, people, I need to go and upload more of these things to Spotify so that people there can see that. Let's have a look. Chris Hall says, Adrian Morris runs a fleet of old cat equipment, all repaired to a high standard. Yeah, and I think at this level of the industry, I think there is an admiration. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we all like to see a sexy new machine with the fancy GPS and the tilt rotators and the lighting schemes and the fancy new seat and the go faster trucks. I think we all like that. Why else would we be watching this show? I think we all like that. But I think there is also among this community of people and those like us that actually have a deep admiration for somebody that's taking good care of a piece of equipment, that can go and start up first time a 20, 25, 30-year-old cat dozer. Lionel Whitman is a perfect example. Yeah, there you are. He was exactly the person I had in mind when I was saying that. Lionel Whitman is a perfect example of business that keeps hold of kit, reconditions it, looks after it properly, and makes money doing it. Yeah. Chris Ford is off to source some back issues of Razzle. Do you know I did a very silly thing? Wow. Did I? I don't know. When we moved house, the way that this used to work, just to fill you in before I go, when I was doing my Razzle column, I used to send them an invoice and they would send me a check because it was a while back. It was an actual physical check together with a copy of that month's issue with my column in it. I kept them all. to read the articles. Obviously, I kept them all. And then when I moved house, I threw them all away. Kept all of the old PMJs that I had at my disposal. Plant Manager's Journals. I had plenty of those at my disposal. In fact, I was looking at one the other day from back in the day. But yeah, threw out all of those. So if you do manage to find a back issue of Razzle with a column in there called Crap Shag Corner, this guy wrote that. Mick Norton says, on the toad box scrapers, you'll have to drag us old buggers out of retirement, like me to reeve the bowl, tailgate, and apron functions. Quite possibly. But would that be such a bad thing? If only we could remanufacture or refurbish some of our older operators. Get another life out of them. I don't think that'd be a bad idea at all. Everybody, please go and have a fun and fruitful day, would you? I'll be back tomorrow. I could give you a quick heads up because I was actually planning to do something else this morning, but tomorrow's chat is going to be about not unions. That doesn't make any grammatical sense. I keep playing over this idea of all the things that are wrong with the UK demolition and construction industry and how they might be different with a union. The problem is I have no faith in unions. Been a member of one. I've been a member of two, left them both, didn't like it. But think about that from a modern perspective. You know, the unions of old used to be face-to-face meetings, letters sent through the post and, you know, paper-based ballots and all that kind of thing. Think about that today from an electronic standpoint. You know, if there was a central hub of construction worker gripes. And think about this. When I was the member of one of the unions when I was working full-time on a magazine, unions used to be divided into things called chapels. So we had a chapel in the building I worked in, and the members of that union probably numbered 200, at most 200 people as member of the union. And every once in a while, you know, they would go forth and represent those 200 workers in negotiations with management about pay and holidays and everything else. Imagine that today, where rather than having a chapel and localized representation, you had like an online forum. I don't mean a forum posting photographs and stuff like that, but a properly organized forum. It wouldn't be beyond the wit of man that rather than representing 200 people, you could be representing 200,000 people quite easily. That will be the subject for tomorrow. One of my late employees used to buy the top shelf every month. There's bound to be some around somewhere. Well, it's a while back. When would it have been? Mid-90s, probably, thereabouts. But as I say, it was for 4 years. So if you find a Razzle with a crap shag corner, you can thank me later. Jim Turner says, unions always seem to be run by shit-stirring twats that were on the take. Yeah. So imagine if it were run rather than by shit-stirring twats that were on the take, if it was actually run by the industry itself, by the workers, the people that are experiencing many of the problems that many people experience in this industry. That is going to be your thought for today, for tomorrow, Mark's morning monologue. If you fancy a bit of that, join me if you would be so kind. I'll probably get to that, I don't know, about 10:30 tomorrow, but there'll be more stuff before that. I hope you can join me. Till then, everybody, have a good one. All the best.